Thursday to you. This is Winnie Sun, host of Now Level Up Live. It is so fun because we have taken up our show, which is traditionally Level Up, which, as you know, is on NASDAQ, on Amazon Fire, and Roku. And we're doing the live stream edition, which is what you're seeing us with today. And as a reminder, we are streaming live on Twitter, on Twitch, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. So wherever you're catching us from, thank you so much for tuning in. So let's start with a quick market update and let you know what's happening with the financial markets. Well, unfortunately, overall, the stock market closed down today. The Dow closed down 130 points, and the NASDAQ joined also down 140 points. Not what we like to see on a Thursday, but as you remember, Thursdays also mean unemployment numbers come out, and we continue to see Americans struggling and filing for unemployment. In fact, last week's numbers were 860,000. Once again, disappointing. We're hoping, of course, more of you can get back to the office, back to wherever you work, and back to your original jobs and a little bit closer to how things were normally. But as you know, we continue to struggle with this pandemic, and we're seeing cases continue to surge in Europe as they reach their second phase. Americans here continue to be concerned because, as you know, medical professionals and scientists continue to warn us that America will see their second phase of the coronavirus come this fall and winter. And as we know, we are pretty much that fall now. Winter's just around the corner. On other news, you may have seen with TikTok, the news is in the next 24 to 36 hours, President Trump is expected to give his thumbs up on the deal with Oracle and Walmart. Oracle is expected to take about 20% ownership. Walmart, we don't know yet. That hasn't been announced. But once they do, and once this gets approved, then they're looking at taking TikTok public. And so that is expected to be actually one of the largest tech company names, new issue, IPO things of the financial market. So that'll be a lot to look at. Now, overall, what happened with the stock market today? We continue to see top names such as, Amazon, Microsoft continue to pull back. We even saw some disappointing results on Apple today, which is a little surprising given how big their announcement call yesterday was. And it was very well received. You saw people commenting on social media. Now, on the discussion of social media, I know many of you are running businesses out there or executives at major companies or media covering large companies during this time. And as we know, marketing has certainly changed, and the style in which we're sharing content is becoming more relevant than ever as more of us are online because we're sheltering in place. So I brought in an expert, actually a very dear friend, someone I trust and in many ways I look up to as a mentor. She is someone that I'm delighted to share with you. To be honest with you, she's actually like a total powerhouse, and we're very fortunate to have her, the one and only Temeka Rice. So let's say a very welcome to Temeka. Temeka, how are you?
I'm doing great, Winnie. How are you today?
I'm doing great because you're here. I have been looking forward to having you. You are, you know what? I have to admit, the times that I spend with you, I get a little awestruck because you are so impressive. And so thank you for making the time.
The feeling is so mutual. It is so great being in your presence. I think everybody that knows you knows you're such a kind person. So it's just so nice when you see someone on TV and you meet them in person and they're just really that down to earth and that awesome. So thank you for the introduction. It's definitely likewise.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, I do remember we were talking about this last time we met, which was in your area. So let's talk about that. You are the lead brand engagement and social head of Sally Mae. But I gotta say, in my mind, you are like sort of the expert when it comes to social media, influencer marketing for so many different brands and industries. In fact, when I follow your content and I watch what you've done, I'm like, she knows so much more than, even the things that we've been able to experience together. And one thing I remember last time we met, the next time we meet, hopefully we get to do a little outlet shopping because I think that was on our to-do list, right?
Definitely. Love shopping. That's probably why I love influencers so much. Personally for me, 3:00 in the morning when I'm looking at Instagram and I run across like plus size influencers and I'm like, oh, they look really great. in that outfit and I discover brands that I hadn't even thought about before. I mean, that's just one of the ways that, influencer marketing resonates with me personally. And I'm sure it resonates with most people.
I love that you said that because, Tamika, as we look at different companies during this pandemic, obviously there are certain brands that are really standing out and really having a true voice. And a big part of it is sort of alignment with influence. We saw that. Tamika, I was actually going to reach out to you. Did you see the recent campaign that came out of McDonald's with their quarter pounder?
Oh my goodness, yes. So did you go get one of the quarter pounders?
I didn't yet, but goodness, I wanted to just pull up and just go, give me a Travis Scott, please, and then hand over my $6. I mean, did you? I heard they're sold out.
So I haven't went yet because I actually want to see the Travis Scott uniform. So I heard those were delayed in most of the stores, but I was reading about some of the employees and they were saying they are so popular among their friends now because everybody wants to know, can they borrow their uniform or have their uniform when the campaign is over? And I mean, when was the last time you heard someone saying, I want to wear a uniform willingly? So I looked at that and I even asked my 15-year-old, I was like, should we go get, the sandwich? And he was like, oh, Mom. And I was like, I'm excited about it. I think we should make a thing out of it. So I think I embarrassed him by saying we should make a thing and post pictures and go on Instagram. So I probably should have been a little bit more low key, but I think that's a fabulous example of how to use an influencer. And I even went online to look at the merchandise and it sold out so quickly.
That's crazy.
It was unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And for those of you who haven't been following this, I definitely recommend you check it out because it's absolutely incredible. Because McDonald's, as we know, and Tamika, you can definitely jump in and talk about this. They're a pretty old brand, right? And they, right. And I guess it was quite historical because this is the only second time they've actually worked with an influencer. The first time being the great Michael Jordan. But they didn't expect for supplies to sell out. I guess you get a quarter pounder, you get French fries, and you get, I think, a Sprite soda. Sprite must have been really happy about that, right?
What a great partnership between McDonald's and Sprite. So they definitely were able to, take advantage of that. I think, and the thing about McDonald's is they have innovative, marketing. They just haven't had to or haven't chosen to use influencer marketing. So it's no surprise that they would come out and do it in such a big way with such a big name star. So I was actually listening to a podcast from one of the marketers who used to hold the McDonald's account. And so I don't know if you remember Calvin from the McDonald's ads in the 80s. He was a neighborhood kid who got a job at McDonald's, and all the old ladies would be sitting on the brownstone, like in New York, saying, is that Calvin? Is that such and such's grandson? Where's he going? And then they're like, oh, he's working at McDonald's. And so the Calvin story actually went on for years until he began in the commercial. He became an owner operator of a McDonald's. So it really showed the growth and the opportunities that McDonald's has for its employees. So they've been doing some really great things, but you're right. First time they've done influencer marketing, but I've always enjoyed looking at their marketing programs.
And what a slam dunk. I guess, how impressive to literally sell out of quarter pounders at McDonald's, right?
Because it's a quarter pounder at the end of the day.
They've been around forever since you and I were little kids. And yet now, people are waiting. It's so brilliant, too, because I think this is the thing that I remember you speaking about this when we were working on other things, of the importance of reaching that next generation, like the millennials, the Gen Zers, and certainly McDonald's was, from what I read, they were struggling a bit, right? Because I think the next generation felt that McDonald's was not cool, not authentic enough, maybe not as, I don't know, maybe not healthy as much, but it's obviously become very, very cool, the thing to have, right?
Yes, they definitely picked a influencer that transcends, that connects a lot of young people. It's not a segment, it's a generation of people. And so I think that was really smart of them to connect and make that connection. I recognize the name Travis Scott because when he's had music come out before, my son is like, I need to use your debit card to buy this music. So that's definitely that generation that they hit. And what an extremely smart project. And I like the fact that it had many aspects to it. A lot of times we think about influencer marketing and we think about it as a one-off thing, like let's work together on this video. But you really have to think about, how do you create a relationship with the influencer? How do you bring them along for the journey? Because it's not really a one-off campaign. So I imagine that there's going to have to be some kind of follow-up to continue that brand love that they're starting to foster with Gen Z, that this is not a one-time happening, that this is a continuation. We're going to see a continuation of a relationship.
Yes, I do think so. Well, let's circle back just a little bit. So Temeka, you represent marketing for one of the largest, most well-known student loan companies on the planet, really. Sallie Mae. Sallie Mae, many of us are familiar with that, especially those of you who've gone to college and have had a student loan, just like I had. I used to write that check to Sallie Mae, and I remember the joy of paying it off. But, going at a company like that, which many of you may not know, but they actually are, they've been very successful in working with influencers. And so maybe you can circle back to me and just talk about, for those who are not as familiar with influencer marketing, can you help define what this is?
Sure. So influencer marketing is the practice of brands finding people whom we call influencers or content creators to really help us connect with an audience. So Winnie, you gave a great example with Travis Scott connecting with Gen Z and McDonald's saying, how can we leverage that relationship to make something happen? And so that's the same way that, companies think about an influencer marketing. How can I tap, or how can I get into this different segment? And so it seems like McDonald's is the company to talk about. So I'm actually in school right now. I'm taking a graduate program in digital marketing. And so the lecture today, the professor was talking about McDonald's in Canada. And some of the same things you talked about, people not really wanting to eat the food, enjoy the food. And so they discovered mommy bloggers, and they said, we're going to bring them into our facility, give them a tour of our offices, let them see how we literally make everything, how we ship it out, let them ask questions, they can post whatever they want. And they saw an uptick in their sales because they connected with moms for the first time. They really mobilized this group of influencers and let them create content that resonated with their audiences, that spoke to the McDonald's passion. So I think, that's one of the best examples. There are a lot of great examples, but that's just one of the really good examples of how a brand says, I want to reach this target audience. Let me figure out someone that really works well, in this target audience. I think about you, and I think about, your target audience, parents who want to make really great decisions about our finances, saving for retirement, wealth building. Winnie's Son is the place to go, so thinking about, how do you make those connections?
I love that. Thank you. Well, I think it's really true when you think about it. And it's interesting that you're taking a course in digital marketing, because I feel like when I think of Temeka, I think she could teach the course. She could be the professor of that course. So see, it just goes to show you, even the strongest continue on their education. What should brands be looking for when they're looking to work with influencers? I hear from a lot of companies saying, even very, very large companies that have, long, plenty of balance sheet profitability. They're well-known brands, and yet they don't have an influencer marketing program. So Temeka, I know obviously many brands will probably want to reach out to you and say, Temeka, I really want to set up an influencer marketing program. Where do I start? What are some things that I should think about when setting up a program like this?
So I think one of the first things that brands have to look at, what is your customer segment? Have you identified your customer personas? Who are your customers? And then what is your customer's journey map? What is their process with you? So when they walk in the door, they show intent. What does that look like? They show consideration. What does that look like when they plan to purchase? Because what you want to do is mirror up your influencer with those particular steps in the journey map. So you really have to do your homework first and identify your target audience, and then what does their journey look like within your brand. And then you're going to mirror up your influencer. And I think a lot of times people, when they think about influencers, they think about celebrities, and celebrities are one level of influencer. So we talked a lot about Travis Scott in the beginning. So that is definitely one level of influencer, but there are many levels of influencers or content creators. And so they can be celebrities, but I think a lot of brands have success when they look at micro influencers. So someone that has 10,000 followers, someone that has 50,000 followers, or macro influencers. So I really think once you identify your audience, identify what that customer journey looks like, then it's time for you to start thinking about your influencers. And one easy way to do that is to use social media listening and see what is your target audience saying. What are those things that your customers are talking about, or who's already talking about your product? You may already have influencers out there that you can use social media listening to help you identify.
I love that. Social media listening. That's such an important thing. I think we've talked a lot about that when it comes to building out your ideal business, how to market your business. But it's interesting because even the biggest of businesses need to pay attention to that social media. You have to do social media listening, because if an influencer has, let's say you said like 50,000 or 10,000 followers, but the signals that you're listening are negative, or are not complementary to your brand, then that becomes a risk. And, I had spoken to an executive of a major auto manufacturer not too long ago. And they said, one of the risks that they had is they actually made a big contract with a major influencer, like a celebrity influencer. And they gave them the car, and they turned out to go in the news and do something very not ethical, not good. And so they had to try and get that car back from the celebrity. And it was a big mess. So when a brand works with an influencer, right, we understand there's certain risks to both parties. Are there certain things that you think make it so the relationship can be more successful in your experience, because you've done this for so long? Are there certain traits that you're looking for when you're selecting influencers, when you're working on campaigns, that would define a win-win for you?
One of the things that I really like doing is doing a deep dive into their content. So what are they talking about? You can tell a lot about a person from their content, from the images that they post, from the memes that they post, the conversations that they participate in online. So I would make sure to do the due diligence and reviewing their social media activity, and just seeing, is this the kind of person that my brand wants to associate with? One of the really cool things that I think we've been able to do with some of our influencer relationships, like I think about you, I think about D1, you are like the most positive people I've ever met. Like every time I see you, you have a smile on your face. Not only that, you attract positive people. So your fan base is extremely positive. And so when we work together, there's a lot of brand love for Winnie Sun. And I call that the halo effect. A lot of that love translates to us. They're like, oh, okay, so Winnie's working with this group, so let me give them a try or see what they're about. So for me, I really like to work with people that have a ton of positive energy, because I think that really helps out the brand, and you get to benefit from that halo effect because they're bringing their positive energy, and then they're also bringing their fan base that has positive energy. And I just think that that's awesome. That's one of the things that I look at.
I love it. That's really helpful. Let's talk about the pandemic. We were talking about earlier, COVID-19 obviously kind of changed life quite a bit. You and I probably wouldn't normally be hanging out here, you and your beautiful sparkly headphones. By the way, if you've been following Temeka on social, and if you don't, you ought to. She's been talking about how she's definitely embracing sequins this week, which I'm really excited. I was actually wondering how you were going to incorporate them. And I actually thought, I should join her. But, things got busy, and then, yeah, you know how it is. But anyhow, but talk about this, like the pandemic. How has it impacted what you do, or what you see in terms of influencer marketing? Has it improved? Has it? I certainly feel like I've gotten busier. I've gotten more calls. I do more satellite media tours now than ever, and video. But what about in your experience?
I can't even keep up with what you're doing, Winnie. And I think that that's really indicative of a lot of influencers' experiences. COVID-19 has definitely not stopped what influencers are doing. I've read a couple of studies that said influencer marketing continues to rise. Even with the pandemic, people are still using influencers. I just saw an article this morning that said one company, a beverage company, they've put on 200 live events with influencers since the pandemic started, and it's generated over 50 million views on YouTube. So influencer marketing is still working for some brands, for a lot of brands. And I like how they're saying, okay, we can't have physical events, so let's think about virtual events. How can we bring influencers on for virtual events? How can we bring influencers on for social media campaigns or for commercials? So I think just like you, I think that that's a trend that we're going to see continue. People are shifting and saying, how can we continue to use influencer marketing? Because the great thing about influencer marketing is people connect with individuals. And so that marketing has been successful. And so we are not able to go out and create elaborate commercials and really expensive productions, but we're able to let influencers do what they do best and create content. Brands have seen that that works and that it continues to work. So we're going to continue to see that throughout the end of 2020 and into 21, that brands are still embracing influencer marketers.
So all the way to end of 2021. You guys hear that? So if you're running a business and you're thinking about how to market your business, you heard Temeka Rice say, until the end of 2021, still think that this is sort of going to stay consistent. And to me, I completely agree, because doing the different media appearances I've been doing each and every week, it certainly seems that way. I mean, everybody's at home, whether it be like CNBC reporters or Fox Business. Everybody has sort of adopted and accepted the fact that this is going to be the new normal for a while. One thing I love to hear from you, this is something I've heard a lot through the years with different people that I follow and have collaborated with on social media and whatnot. A lot of people will say, I used to do a lot of public speaking. I travel the world and do speaking, and now my business has come to a halt. But I'm thinking I should start to learn more about becoming an influencer, using my social reach for that purpose. When you hear something like that, what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are, how are you currently using your social media presence to really activate your brand? So if you're traveling the world and you're doing speaking tours and speaking engagements, that's awesome. Just how can you maximize your social media to show people that that's what you've been focused on? So I've been focused on personal brand, for example, for the last couple of months. And so I've had a couple of opportunities to speak to different groups about personal brand and what does that mean and how do you show up for it? And so talking to people about, let's start with your headshot. So when you see a headshot of Winnie Sun, like, it's Winnie Sun, it's the authentic headshot because Winnie Sun has a certain style. So starting with your headshot, make sure you have beautiful headshots that are created. I think that's something people overlook. You look on LinkedIn and sometimes people have selfie shots, they have family shots, great pictures, just probably not the best for building that thought leadership on LinkedIn. So if you're speaking at a conference, did you use your social media to promote the conference? Did you take a snippet of the video and afterwards and use it and promote it on your social media conference? Are you using the right keywords and the right hashtags so that when people are looking for speakers on a particular topic, that your name comes up? And are you utilizing your website? So does your website list your previous speaking engagements, maybe some of your decks that you've used before, or again, a video clip? So how are you maximizing your online presence, both social and your website, to really speak to your brand and showcase your thought leadership? Because during this pandemic, we really have an opportunity to take both our website and our social media presence to another level. That's just like one great thing that we can be doing during the pandemic, is thinking about how can I maximize both my social media content and my web presence to really elevate my personal brand.
I love that. Okay, so this is your opportunity. Those of you who are watching, Temeka Rice says, this is your opportunity to elevate your personal brand. Really figure out like what your image reflects. Take a look at that headshot. In fact, we have a great question from Jenny Cook on, do you have any tips for getting great headshots on a budget? I'll let you, and then I'll jump into if necessary.
So, one of the great things that I'm seeing right now are people on LinkedIn who are willing to help other people out and take great headshots. So, I've seen people offering $25 headshots or free headshots during the pandemic just to help people get those experiences. I also like to use Facebook. So, I like to use Facebook to look for local photographers and check out their photos so it doesn't have to be expensive. And I think that's a great way to discover up and coming people who haven't quite built out their portfolio. For me, when I'm looking at a photographer's page and they have a tab that says investment instead of price or cost or fee, I'm like, ooh, okay, that's probably outside of my price range. But I'll go look on Facebook for someone who's just starting out, just building their portfolio. And that's how I look to get pictures within a budget.
Absolutely. I love that. And actually, I'll take a trick that my creative director, Curtis, taught me, which is don't underestimate the power of portrait mode on that iPhone too. I mean, if you need to take 20 photos and not, you can just, go face a window that faces northbound or go outdoors, go to a tunnel, wherever you need to do, take a whole bunch of photos in portrait mode. Surely you'll find one that you're going to love.
That's a great tip, Winnie. And another one that you actually taught me. So you have a fabulous light set. So you encouraged me to go get like my own ring lights and set them up. And so it came with a little remote control, and I was able to put my phone on portrait mode and take my own pictures and not even have to bother my kids to take pictures for me. And it was awesome. So I definitely think that's a great tip, using your iPhone.
Yeah, easy and free and super convenient. And you know how you make funny faces. Sometimes you just need to make them and have yourself filter them out without, going there. But, one thing that I want to talk about is this. I mean, during this time, during the pandemic, a lot of people are getting laid off and furloughed. In fact, at my day job, certainly we're seeing a total uptick in people reaching out, looking for advice on going through this transition. So during this time, one of the things I've been telling some of the people that I've been consulting with, I said, one thing that you ought to think about right now is not only looking at possible job opportunities, which is of course very important, but also think about creating a personal brand and having something to identify with beyond the company, whatever corp that you work with, right? Instead of me coming and saying, oh, Temeka, yes, she works at Sally Mae. I think of Temeka and I think of Temeka Rice, like total social media, let's say the nice word, powerhouse, right? She totally knows what to do, and she always is very visionary on what to do next, which is exciting. But what do you think about that, Temeka? As employees at different companies, do you think companies should be more mindful of the opportunity of having their employees represent their brand and creating personal brands within a larger entity?
So I'm not sure I can really speak on the company part, but I think for the personal part, I think it's so important that you identify as more than that. So we're both moms, and I'm sure we consider that like our most important job that we're doing, raising our kids. But it's important at the end of the day that we're more than moms, right? And it's the same thing with your job. And so hopefully we're all doing something that we truly love and something that we're truly passionate about. But I think it's so important to foster those passions. Like today in the office, I listened to someone do a presentation on personal brand. So she has a business on the side. She is a stylist and a fashion influencer. She's even written a book about it. And so she talked about personal brand. I mean, she's an employee of our company, but yet this is her passion. This is something she's passionate about. So I think it's important that people are able to embrace their passions and really, speak to them. And that's just something I've been focused on for the last 4 months, on the weekends, late nights. I'm like, what is it that Temeka is really passionate about? I think that that's important for people to say, what is it that brings me joy? And just really be able to answer that question and make sure you're doing those things that truly, bring you joy. And just for me, like when I think about it, women and leadership, that's one of the things that brings, me joy. So working with, young women, some of the boards that I sit on that have that particular focus, financial literacy is so important to me, and higher education. So those are the things that I'm excited when I'm able to do those things, when I'm able to talk about those things. I'm always excited about marketing, and media and all of that. But those are also the things that I get excited about when I think in the morning. And the other thing that I would just add is, even though I work in social and digital marketing, one of my just personal beliefs, you just can't learn enough. You can't know everything about a topic. And I always want to make sure that I'm teachable. And so I even took a class this morning from LinkedIn on how to rock your LinkedIn profile. So it's something I talk about at work all the time, but I was like, okay, let me see what the LinkedIn, people say. And they actually had a segment where the facilitator talked about, if you are looking for a job, LinkedIn has a really nice option now where you can put on your profile picture, open to work. So I think that's something that people should, be thinking about if they happen to be out of work or looking to work due to COVID, utilizing that available or open to work feature in LinkedIn, and then just making sure your LinkedIn profile is optimized so that recruiters can, help find you for those open opportunities.
Yes. So great suggestions. Now, one thing that we continue to talk about too, and I know you've talked about this, is the importance of sort of having a strong content direction and plan, right?
Right.
One thing that I've noticed, especially I'm in several different large company influencer groups, such as I'm part of the Adobe Insiders and a few other groups. But one thing that I have found is these really big, what you would consider influencers, who have traditionally done global speaking or done consulting, many of them found their business to be really, really slow now. And so I wanted to see if you could share a little bit about your insight as someone obviously who heads digital and social strategy for major companies. How important is content? What type of content makes sense? What do you think is an ideal consistency of sharing content? And does it matter? Does it matter print? Does it matter audio, video? What do you think, Temeka?
That's a great question. And I really think it depends on the individual. So I think you first identify your target, you identify your audience, and then you figure out what is it that your audience wants to hear from you about, and you document that. So this is what I will talk about on social media. These are the topics and the things that are important. And then where do my consumers live, right? And so I'll use this as an example, TikTok. Everybody's like, you have to get on TikTok. And so I was talking to a lady yesterday. She's a life coach, and she's like, I've hired social media strategists before, and they're like, let me take a picture of you on the beach. And she's like, why would I ever be on the beach? I'm trying to help people get their lives together. And so we had a great, conversation. I was like, I bet they told you should be on TikTok. She's like, yes. And I'm like, so, really, you have to look at where are the people. Like if I'm a life coach and I'm trying to help professionals who are mid-career figure out their next move or get to the C-suite or the executive level, are those folks hanging out on TikTok? So I think a lot of times we get stuck on the fads or the trends, but we have to really think about like where are consumers and what does it make sense for us to participate in? And that's where strong content marketing, comes in. So for example, it may be National Hot Dog Day and you'll have social media. I see ads for it all the time. We'll help you write content for all of these, national days and the hashtags. But does it really fit with your brand? And that's the question that you have to ask. And that's why I always encourage people to sit down before you start writing content to really think about what is your strategy. And so when I think about like my personal brand and my personal page, and I told you I'm about women in leadership, I'm about financial literacy, I'm about higher education, I need to make sure that at least 90% of my content speaks to those things. But I also need to make sure that when you see that content, you're like, oh, that's Temeka's content. That's not content from something else or from someone else. I want it to be identifiable that it's Temeka's content. When they read it, I want them to think, oh, yes, that's something that Temeka would share. I don't want to just blindly share something or just share something because it happens to be trending. I want to make sure that it actually resonates with my brand and resonates with who I am. And that's why I think we start with the basics with what is your thought leadership? And then everything ladders up to that. So when I look at your Instagram page, it should be really cohesive. The colors should come together. The branding should be together. We're even talking about small things like grammar and spelling. Do you have those things together? So it's all of those little things that help you build together a cohesive picture. Like when I got the photo for this particular event from your team, I said, oh, this looks exactly like something Winnie's group would produce, right? So hands down, this is Winnie's brand. And then I saw the Level Up promo come up and the video come up, and it's so much energy. And I'm like, yep, it looks just like the promo picture. You know right away that that's Winnie's son. And that's what you want people to feel when you look at your brand. I received like the best note this morning on LinkedIn, and it was someone I haven't spoken to for like 10 years. And they were like, I've just been looking at your LinkedIn profile for the last couple of months, and you really enjoy and you really love what you're doing, and it's coming through. And that's what I want people to see, is like the joy that I have, the things that I'm passionate about, the things that are important to me. That's what I want to come through. And it was just like, well, that's what I've been trying to, get out on LinkedIn. These are the things I'm passionate about. And I'm so glad it came through and someone actually commented about it. So I think about content strategy, making sure all of your content, your images, your videos, everything aligns. You want a content mix. You definitely want videos, you want images, and then test and learn, like see how your audience responds. Stories are really popular. So how are you using stories and incorporating those into your content strategy? How are you using live video? I definitely think there's a mix, but I definitely think you have to sit down and decide the what, and then what will it look like?
I love that. I love that. Decide on the what and then decide on what it will look like. Really powerful, Temeka. See, I'm telling you, I could just listen to her talk for hours. But many of you are probably watching and you probably have more questions. And I just want to stop and just say thank you so much for all of you for tuning in. The comments have been flying in on our different platforms. This is so much to think about. Even if you aren't ready to be an influencer, which I know not everybody wants to be an influencer or has, or really, that's not really something that's important for them. But thinking about your personal brand, I think even if you think you don't need a personal brand, you do have a personal brand. It's how people associate you. And Temeka has said, someone who had been watching her LinkedIn profile for months said it looked like you were sharing information, so it made me feel like you were really, really loving your life. And how powerful is that? Because if you think about it, as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, each and every day you're hoping that someone thinks of your company or your service for that void at that time. You want to be a contender, right? And I always say, if you don't represent yourself, then your industry represents you. And I certainly didn't want my industry representing me. I wanted myself to represent myself, right? Because I'm a person with a personality, with a voice, and with credibility, and we need to be able to stand up and do that. And I tell you, Temeka is someone I've known for a few years now, and every time I meet with her, I get inspired, and she always like turns on light bulbs all over. For those of you who play Animal Crossing, my kids do. It's like when little things come out of your brain and you're just like really, really excited. I mean, that's how I feel when talking to her. So Temeka, let me ask you this, because I know a lot of people want to get to know you. What's the best way to follow your content? Where do you share the most right now so people can follow along and learn more along the way?
Great. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, Temeka Easter. And you can also find me on Instagram. It's the Joy Group. So _joy_group. You can find me on Instagram. That's my newest page. I'm like so excited about that. I love my Twitter page too. You can see, the picture there, and my LinkedIn. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I used to actually be scared of networking and things like that because I'm really an introvert. I know that's hard to believe, But once I realized, networking was really relationship building, and I do enjoy relationships and meeting with people and learning about what makes them tick and what they're passionate about. So feel free to network and connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
We will certainly do that. And this is your beautiful website. Want to make sure you saw the Joy Group. Really, really cool. And I gotta say, I actually was at a conference where Temeka went on stage and she did this performance. I think it was like just a few minutes, and I gotta tell you, it was brilliant. So there are some people that do social media, do digital marketing and whatnot, and help others. There's other people that can not only help others but do it themselves and do it really well. This girl can do everything. So certainly a powerhouse. If you don't already, I want to invite you and to follow Temeka. I think you'll feel certainly I think it's a really smart move, especially those over here looking to build your business and take them to the next level. She's definitely someone that you'll want to keep on your radar. And certainly a very dear friend of mine, someone I trust immensely. And yeah, my go-to for sure. And it's been a complete honor to work with you at Sally Mae. And so we got to give a quick shout out to Sally Mae. Thank you so much for bringing us together. That's how I got to meet Temeka Rice. So I feel very fortunate about that. But thank you, Temeka, for your time. And before we let you go, any last words, any other words of wisdom you want to share with us?
I just want to say I gave the TikTok example as a platform, but I want to say that I do love TikTok. I think people are doing some incredible things with TikTok. So I didn't want that to make it seem like it shouldn't be part of your content strategy. I'll just share really quickly. My sister wants to be an influencer, oddly enough. She hasn't hired me yet to be her manager. I'm just waiting on the call. But she recently reached 10,000 followers on TikTok, and her whole goal is to make people happy. So I'm about joy and she's about the happiness. And so, I really just think that that's a great mix. And that's one of the great things about social. It keeps us connected. I get to see my friend Winnie all the time. And I just want to thank you for this opportunity. It truly made my day, made my month. And I'm so glad to get to connect with positive people like you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your friendship and thank you for being brilliant. And you'll have to keep us updated on your sister because maybe we'll have to share her video one of these days. But thank you, my friend. And thank you all so much for following along and learning more about the one and only Temeka Rice. If you found the information that Temeka shared helpful, I'm just going to encourage you to share this video with your family and friends, and especially other entrepreneurs that you think might be thinking, you know what, my business has gone to a certain level, but maybe I'll look at, influencer marketing, or maybe, I'm hearing a lot about personal branding and I don't know that much. This would be the person that you want to follow. This would be a great interview, even if for that, that student that's in college is trying to feel like themselves. I'm mentoring other college students right now, and they love this content. So thank you, Temeka, for all that you do. We will definitely see you again tomorrow. Now, tomorrow's always special. Tomorrow's Friday. And as you know, Fridays means AMA, which is Ask Me Anything. We've got questions that have come in all week. And so we'll be answering your questions live on the show tomorrow. Those of you joining me on the East Coast, that's 4:30 Eastern. Joining me on the West Coast, where I'm at, it's 1:30 Pacific. You don't want to miss it. I'm going to look forward to seeing you. Make a note. Please put it in a calendar. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Take care now.